All right, so I was researching some different compiler options, and there were certain things that I was trying to keep in mind. First of all, I was trying to. One of my goals was to try to find something that would work on both Windows and Mac. Another one of my goals was to try to find something that wasn't overly complicated, because this is a intro programming class, right? So there's always something like Microsoft Visual Studio, and they have different versions of that, but I was afraid that might get a little bit complicated. But and for the Windows users, I've always liked using the dev C++ compiler. I feel like you can get in and get started with it pretty easily without having to. We're here to learn how to program, right, in C++, and I don't want you to have to spend a whole lot of time also learning how to use the software, the compiler software, right? Because that's an extra thing to have to learn. So I was trying to find something somewhat simple, and I came across CodeBlocks, which I'd seen CodeBlocks before, but when I was researching it before, I didn't think that they had a Mac version, but it looks like they do now. But if you have Mac, I found a video on YouTube that shows how to install it on a Mac. But to install it on a Mac, you have to have Xcode installed first. So, and that's like how big was that? Like a couple gigabytes or something like that. But I tried it out. I tried this out on a Mac that I was able to borrow, and so I installed Xcode on there first, and then once you get Xcode installed, then you can add CodeBlocks. There's a couple of little hoops that you have to jump through to get it working on a Mac, but I just stepped through the video that I found and it worked okay. So I'll try to put a link to that video here in a little bit. Okay, so anyway, but they also make CodeBlocks for Windows and stuff. So if you want to download and install CodeBlocks for Windows, just load up Google. We'll search for it. Just search for CodeBlocks. Maybe CodeBlocks C++. I'll try that. CodeBlocks. So the website is www.codeblocks.org. Okay. So CodeBlocks, and I've had a couple students use this in the past. It's an open source cross-platform free C and C++ and Fortran IDE. So, and that was another thing that I was kind of hoping for, was an IDE, integrated development environment. So an IDE is going to have a compiler as part of it. It's going to have the text editor that's part of it as well. Because even on a Mac, one option is to always just use a regular text editor, and then just go to the command line and compile it from there. And I've done that before, but again, that's kind of something extra to learn. I'm trying to make this not too intimidating. So anyway, so after you go to the CodeBlocks website, let's click on Downloads. Okay. And so you get this. And so we have different options. There's download the binary release, the source code, and retrieve the source code. We want the binary. So click on download the binary release. All right. And then up at the top, you have different options, right? So we have Windows, XP, Vista 7, 8, or 10. So this is actually Windows 8 that I'm running, but the lab machines have Windows 10 on them. I tried to install Windows 10 on this laptop one time, and it did not go well. It didn't like Windows 10. So I think I'm kind of stuck with Windows 8 on it. But if you are a Mac user, there's the Mac OS X option. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and proceed right now with the Windows options. But I might come back to the Mac, or I might show you that video here in a little bit. So I'm going to click on Windows XP, Vista, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So when I do that, I get this. Now there's different options here. We have to be aware of which option we're choosing. So a couple of these options come with the compiler, and then some of them don't. So we probably want to choose the one that comes with a compiler. Yes, sir.
So for us to get it on Mac, we have to download Xcode?
Yes, so you have to download Xcode first. Xcode, I think Xcode has all the compiler and everything built in to it. So as far as the Windows options here, then there's some notes down here, right? So the first couple that are just the setup and the setup no admin, those do not come with a compiler, I don't believe. So that assumes that you have a compiler already. Yeah, and so let's see. And the min GW, there's 3 of those options. They include the GCC G++ compiler. Okay. And then there's one option that has a Fortran compiler as well. That's a different language, so we're not really doing that in here. So up here, the options that we're probably interested in are the min GW setup and the min GW no setup is the no admin. I thought that would be no admin. I think that's what that is. No, wait. What is this one? No setup. Oh, I thought they had a non-admin version with the compiler. But that's different. Bummer. We're going to try this one. And we'll see if it complains about admin privileges. If it does, on the lab machines, I might have to get computer services to do this for me. All right. See, I'm wondering what no setup is. I think we need to do this one. Let's try this one. CodeBlocks min GW setup.exe. That's the one that I tried out at home over the weekend. And so what you want to do is click on SourceForge. Of course, my Mac users, it's different, right? So if you have CodeBlocks installed already, you could go ahead and try it. So I'm going to click on that. And oh, it downloaded. It's downloaded down at the bottom. And so it is 86 megabytes. So this might take a little while. How's it going on y'all's? Did it start downloading? Is that going okay? Right. It's already downloaded? Wow, that's fast. Is it 86 megabytes? 86.2. Uh-huh. Oh, I know why. You guys are wired, have wired connections. I'm using the wireless connection.
Well, this one's still taking some time.
Really? So while that's going, I'm going to let that go. And while that's going, I'm going to see if I can find this video for the Mac people. Okay. So it was on YouTube is where I found it. So I'm going to search on YouTube for CodeBlocks Install Mac. CodeBlocks Install Mac. And I think it's this one. How to install CodeBlocks IDE on a Mac.
Hang on, you have to explain the whole thing.
My team and I always had trouble managing our tasks.
You all been getting the
until one
double
of my
ads
colleagues
on
found
YouTube?
Monday.com. You can see
I
the
hate
task
it.
owner,
I hate the double
deadline.
ads.
Especially when you can't skip the first.
Hey guys, in this
Yeah.
video I'm going to show you how you can download and install
Yeah, this is it.
CodeBlocks on your Mac
So I'm going to
operating
pause
system.
my recording.
So let's
and
get
just let that
started
go.
and let's see how we can download and install CodeBlocks on our Mac operating system.
All right, cool. All right, so did everybody get it downloaded? So mine downloaded, and so now we're about to find out if we if the lab machines will let us do this without admin privileges. I think it'll work on mine because I have admin. So when I go to try to run this, and again, the one that I downloaded was the one with the MinGW set up. So I'm going to say yes. No! That's what I was afraid of. So, so I may have to get the computer services guys to do this on the lab machines. But if you have, your own personal laptop, you probably have admin privileges, and so you could do it there. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and go forward with it just to have it documented here. So I would click next. So it takes us through this wizard. You can take a look at the license agreement. I agree. I would just click next on these. Just leave it where it wants to install it. It takes a little time, but not too bad. All right, and so it installed, and let me go ahead and see if it's going to work right, or if there's a couple things that we have to do. So I'm going to go ahead and actually I'm going to say no, and I'm going to start it up. So I'm going to click next and finish the setup there. So it installed CodeBlocks. I've got an icon up here on my desktop. It's probably also on your start menu if you have Windows 10 or something like that. I'm going to go ahead and start it up. And so, yeah, so this is what we saw in the Mac video as well. The first time you start it up, it will ask you about what compiler that you want to use. And so remember, the compiler is the part that does the translation and stuff. So without a compiler, CodeBlocks is basically just a little text editor that you can type code up, but you can't compile it, so it's kind of useless. So that's why we chose the option that had the compiler with it. Okay, and so it should say it should show the GNU GCC compiler detected. So, and that's the default one there. So I'm just going to click OK. Okay, but then yeah, I was getting. Oh no, this is just saying that hey, this is not my default compiler. I'm gonna leave it right now. I've got Dev C++ installed here, so I might change this later. I'm just gonna click OK. All right, and if I were to want to create a new C++ program, I think in CodeBlocks, I'm gonna close that. I think you have to create a project. And so like in Dev C++, we can just start up a new source file and we don't have to mess with the project if we don't want to. But I'm not sure if you can do that in CodeBlocks. So the way that he was showing it and the way that I would do it is go to File and choose New. If I can get there. And well, we do have empty file, so I'm not sure if that would work or not. We'll have to experiment with that. But I'm going to choose Project to be more like what he was doing. So a new project, and then I would come down here, and for our programs in this class, these are going to be console applications. Okay. So I'd choose console application and click go, and maybe click next, and just kind of go through this wizard. We're doing C++. And you have to give it a name for a project. So a project is like kind of a container that has all the stuff for your program. So when your programs can be more complicated, like in programming 2, we'll create projects that have multiple files in them. And so instead of putting all of our source code in one file, we'll have them split up into different files. But everything's in one project. So I'm just going to do a little test right here. Project title. I'll do, maybe call this test project. And it asks us the folder to put the project in. So I'm going to find a good place for it. Let me see if I have. Maybe in documents. Yeah, I've got a folder for this class. Inside of there, I'll make a new folder. Demo. And I think it'll create another folder inside of there for my project. And then I'm going to click next. And then ask me, okay, what compiler am I using? So it's the GNU GCC compiler. I'm going to click finish. And then when I do that, it creates the project. Over here on the left, it says test project. And under sources, if you click that little plus sign right there, there you will see your file, your main source code file. So if I double click on that, it already starts it off with a little template like in the demo video that we saw. And so I could build and run that. So when you build it, that's like it's creating the executable and everything. So you have to, it's basically compiling, right? So that's what this little icon does, or you can go up to build and build it. Cool. So it looks like it built. When I did this at home on a Windows 7 machine, it was giving me an error saying that it couldn't find where the compiler was. And so I had to go in and select the right directory. Oh, by the way, and then you would run it. So the little triangle runs it. And so there it ran it. I've got this annoying virus checker that runs it through there first to make sure that it's not malware or something like that. But anyway, there's my result right there, hello world. And then you close that. If it can't find your compiler, I'm trying to remember what I did to fix that. I think I went to settings. This one worked, but on my machine at home, had to go to settings and compiler, I think is where I went. Can't remember if that's what I did or not. Maybe it's given me this because it could find it. But anyway, somewhere I had to put in a folder location to go to it. Anyway, does that help? So this is the CodeBlocks IDE. So and this is a good option for everybody. You know, of course, like I said, the Dev C++ will work on Windows, but there's not a Mac version. So since we have like 5 Mac users in here, that's why I kind of was leaning towards this in this class. All right, so I'm going to stop this video, and I'll upload this to YouTube and have a link to it.